Well, now you have your 510K. Now what do you have to do? This actually came up recently. We had a company that was just getting their 510K and they were like, now what do we have to do? What are the next steps that we have to do? And we explained some of these things to companies in our proposals and we talk about it. But after you've gone through the entire 510K process, 9 months to a year could have gone by. So now that you're actually having the situation of we have our 510K, you might actually not remember all those little details that we explained to you. And you might be like, well, what am I supposed to do now? So if you're trying to figure out what you're supposed to do next, this video should help you. First of all, you're not even allowed to register your product and your company until you have that first 510K, unless your company is distributing class 1 exempt products. So once you get that 510K, that's when you register your product and your company, not later. Technically, you're registering your facility, your establishment, and you do one registration for each facility. So if you're a bigger company that has multiple sites in different parts of the country, you're going to do a separate establishment registration for each site. That doesn't mean your warehouse down the street. That means each individual site, where you would have management and the FDA inspector would come and greet somebody that's the management representative. The listing is for each product. So the establishment registration is the company or the site, and the listing is for each product or product family that you have. So if you have your 510K, that is your first listing. So that's when you have to register. Whether you're a US company or you're a foreign company, you're still required to register. If your company is outsourcing things, you might only be registering as the specifications developer. Typically, you will also be doing the complaint file management. So you'll be maintaining that complaint file, which is one of the requirements under 21 CFR 820. But it could be something you have an agreement with a distributor that might be importing your product into the US, and they might be responsible for all the complaint handling. So that is an option. But most companies that get their own 510K, they also do the complaint file management. If you're outsourcing the manufacturing, that might be something that you have them registered as a contract manufacturer. But you need to know what the different roles are that you need to register for. And if you need any help with that, that's one of the services our companies offer. You can actually go on our website and we actually have a place for registration and you can schedule a call with us. And our fee for helping companies with their first time registration, that's $600. There are a few other companies out there that do it. Probably the largest one that does registration and U.S. agent services, that company is Registrar Corp. Why would I mention a competitor? Because they cost twice as much as we do. But that is the number one company out there that does the most of registrations and U.S. agent services. If you need a U.S. agent, or maybe your question is, do I need a U.S. agent? If you are a non-U.S. company and you are required to register with the FDA, you will be required to have a U.S. agent. They won't let you complete the registration process without actually listing a U.S. agent. And the instant you finish the whole entire process and click submit, and it says, congratulations, you've confirmed, now an email will go out to that U.S. agent, and they have to confirm that, yes, they are your U.S. agent. If they don't do that in a certain number of days, then it will get kicked back to you, and they'll say this person failed to confirm, and they'll prompt you that you need to identify a new U.S. agent or get it sent out to them again so they can properly confirm. The next thing I had on the list was what is the status of your quality system need to be at the time you get your 510K. Now, a lot of consultants that do quality and regulatory, they'll say you absolutely have to have your whole quality system in place before you submit your 510K. That's not actually a requirement. There are companies out there that just do design controls, they crank out 510Ks, and then they sell them to other people. So they don't have a complete quality system. They're not registered with the FDA, and they're not required to be. But you are required to register within 30 days of distributing product. And if you're outside the US, you can't get product through the US border unless you're registered. And the instant you register, you're saying, come and inspect me. We have a complete quality system. We meet all the requirements, and you can come and inspect us. So don't register until you're ready for an inspection. Does the FDA say, oh, they registered yesterday, I'm going to knock on your door today and I'm going to come and inspect you? No. So the fastest I've ever seen it happen is 6 months after registration. That was for a high-risk company, not because the product they made per se, but they were a reprocessor of medical devices. So they took devices from hospitals, they cleaned them, inspected them, repackaged them, sterilized them, and gave them back to the hospital. Those reprocessors are doing something the FDA views as high risk. So those companies have to get registered with the FDA as a, and they have to get a 510K for reprocessing. And the FDA prioritizes those inspections within the first 6 months. Another category would be any contract sterilizers. They would be prioritized in the first 6 months. Some high-risk devices, they would be as well. And if you're making a PMA product, a class 3, you're going to get an inspection before you even get your PMA. So that tells you when you need that quality system in place. But in general, I usually expect companies to have design controls, risk management, software validation, and usability in place before they submit their 510K, because you need all that in place to create the documents for your 510K. Whoop, I tapped on the wrong screen. Hopefully I didn't screw something up. Then the second thing that you need to do is implement the rest of the quality system core pieces that would be used to run your day-to-day operations of the quality system. So examples of this would be document control, record control, training. These would be basic procedures that everybody should have in place. But then there are 25 total procedures that you need for the FDA. So I've only listed off 7 so far. You might have more than that that you need right away in order to set things in place, like supplier controls, so you can order parts from your suppliers. You're supposed to have that in place before you order, not after you order. You might need to do process validation. So for anything that you're not able to do 100% inspection of, those things you need to validate the process. So you need that in place. So there are quite a few procedures that you're going to need to put in place as you go along. But do you have to have everything in place at the time you get your 510K? No. You could implement those while the FDA is doing review of their 510K, or you could even do a couple of those after the 510K is done. Examples of things that I would leave to the very end: recall, complaint handling, medical device reporting. Those 3 probably you don't need to do until the very end, because if you don't have any product in the field, there's nothing to recall, there's nothing to do MDR reporting for, and you shouldn't be getting any customer complaints. So there are some things that I would leave till the very end. And of course, do you need to do an internal audit before the complete quality system is in place? Absolutely not. If you did, you would have a bunch of can't audit this because there are no records. So I would wait on my internal auditing pretty much till the end as well. Manager reviews, I usually do those after I've done my internal audit. So that I would probably push to the very end as well. So there I've listed off 5 different procedures that I would leave to the very end. So if you're a procrastinator, those are the ones you'll like best. You leave those to the end. All those other ones I mentioned, document control, record control, training, those need to be done pretty early. You don't want to procrastinate on those. So that gives you an idea of what the status of your quality system needs to be. Just because some consultant told you have to have this all in place before you submit your 510K, that isn't actually a thing. You have to have it in place at the time you register. And if you don't have it in place completely by the time the FDA inspection comes, then you're going to get a 483 for each item that you're missing. Next, when will you be inspected? I covered that a little bit. I said the earliest I've seen it is in 6 months. I was just talking with a client on the phone just before this live video, and he has a class 1 product that he's about ready to launch. He said in the next few weeks, he's going to have his parts. He's going to be ready to start shipping. So that company has a class 1 device. They are not going to be a priority for inspection. They're going to be as low down on the list as they can possibly be for an inspection. Yes, they could be inspected when they register, but it's extremely unlikely. So probably 2 to 3 years in is the earliest I would expect the FDA to show up for them. And if you're outside the US, the FDA actually has to contact you in advance, usually 6 to 8 weeks in advance, and they ask you, would you be available these dates? Because they're not going to schedule a flight and plan to go over to another country and do an inspection of a facility if you're not there, if you're closed, if you're on holiday that week for some reason. So they always make sure they contact the company ahead of time and schedule the audits when it's an international inspection. And if the company is domestic, they might call on Friday afternoon and say, hey, I'm going to be there Monday. I hope you're ready. You can tell them, oh, next week I'm on vacation, or next week is company shutdown. Could we reschedule? That is a possibility, but whatever dates you tell them you will be available, they may not commit to which one. They say, we will be back one of those dates. You should be prepared. We can't reschedule this again. So it is possible to tell them next week's not really good. I'm having a wedding, really good reason. I'm having a funeral, really good reason. We're going to a major trade show like MDM West out in Anaheim. That could be a reason. Medica would be another reason. If you give them a rational reason to postpone things, but you got to tell them when you will be available, and they're not necessarily going to say, yes, we're going to be there then. They may say, we might be there then. Give us a couple of choices. Next item, reimbursement. How do you get reimbursement for your product? So I have my 510K. How do I make sure that we're going to actually get paid for the product now that we have the 510K clearance? Some products, the hospitals just won't reimburse you because you don't have any codes with insurance providers or CMS to get reimbursed. And that isn't something that happens overnight. Another thing you got to keep in mind is just because there is a code doesn't mean it's a code for your product. It might be a code for a competitor product and specifically for that competitor. So you need to make sure that you understand what the reimbursement policies are going to be and what the process is going to be. And you probably should be talking with a reimbursement consultant that specializes in this. What a lot of people find out is they're like, can you tell us how we can get out of clinical studies? How can we avoid clinical studies? I get all these questions like, they're afraid to death of a clinical study, but then they wonder why they have no sales. Well, it's because you have no reimbursement. And the reason why you have no reimbursement is you didn't do any clinical studies to show that your product is actually effective. Insurance companies are much tougher than the FDA. The FDA cares whether it is equivalent to the device that you're saying, this is my predicate. But the insurance providers, they don't want just equivalent. They want this is just as effective. And that's a higher bar that you have to hit. And if you want it to be the thing that they're going to easily reimburse, this is required. This is the standard of care. And so this is what the hospitals will use. In order to get something like that, you're going to have to do a lot of testing, and it has to be submitted to CMS. And it's a quite long process that can take multiple years. So it's not uncommon to see a company do a 510K, get on the market, and then see a whole bunch of clinical studies after that pop up on clinicaltrials.gov because they realize, oh, we have to do clinical studies if we want to get reimbursed. At least now, when you do those studies, they're post-market studies, and you can get some payment for them. Whereas if you had done them pre-market, you would have had to probably pay for it all out of pocket for conducting the study and gathering the data. So that's something you should take a look at. We can recommend some reimbursement consultants out there, but that is definitely something you're going to need if you're not already working with a reimbursement consultant. Next item on the list, and it was the last one that I had on our webpage for today, was how do I, who's going to be helping me with distribution and sales? I actually worked on business plans. When I first started my consulting business, I was working in medical device companies. I had started my own medical device company. And when I first started my own medical device company, the way I met the person that became my partner, I actually was writing business plans for medical device companies as a business. So I would actually help them write the strategic marketing plan. I would help them with the cash flow projections, with the cost of and the timelines were going to be, what the management team was. I wrote all that up as a business plan. Well, this person hired me and he liked the way I did it so much. He said, "Would you help me run my company?" And I took a chance and we started a business. Well, um, for what I see a lot of times in medical device companies is they don't understand sales and marketing at all. The best medical device companies to invest in are ones that are started by somebody that is a salesperson. They know there's an unmet need out there. They know exactly who they're going to sell it to. They know exactly how they're going to get reimbursed for it, but the product doesn't exist, or that version of the product doesn't exist. Maybe they've worked for Arthrex for 20 years as a sales rep, and they like everybody asks for this, and I don't have it in my bag of products to sell them. If I did, I would sell so much more of that. That's a perfect idea for a business. When you're a salesperson, you know the process, you have customers, and they keep on asking for something you don't have in your bag of tricks. You need either to go work for the company that does sell that, or if nobody sells it, that's an idea for a great business. So a lot of companies just don't get that because they were started by engineers that understand how to design and build something that's a better mousetrap, but they don't know the customer well enough to know how to sell it. So you really need to have somebody on your team that has that sales and marketing background, and they need to create your sales and marketing strategy. And sales is different from marketing, which is different from advertising. Those three are not the same things. They're three totally different things, and they probably shouldn't even be done by the same person, even though it often is. The person that does advertising and creates copy, that is a certain skill, and it's tactical. Marketing strategy is totally different from advertising tactics in your advertising campaigns that you're going to do, whether they're online or they're print or radio, whatever it is. Even snail mail campaigns, those are all tactics. Marketing is strategy. What does your company do, and what does your company avoid? What is the area of the industry you don't do anything with at all, and on purpose? So that helps you laser focus where you're going to spend your advertising dollars. So marketing strategy is probably the most important part of your business plan, and the CEO should have their finger on the pulse of exactly what that is. And the companies that really struggle are the ones that don't understand that. So if you need help with marketing strategy, that's one of my favorite things to work on. But there are a lot of people out there that are Harvard MBAs and Kellogg MBAs. They know this area. You should really be hiring those people to help you if you don't get it. And the third area, the distribution. There are distributors out there. There are direct salespeople. There's Amazon. There's online. There are a lot of different distribution channels, but there are distribution channels that are typical for each product. And so if you try a different distribution channel that is not the norm for this type of product, you may hit a brick wall really fast. So if it's like an orthopedic instrument or an orthopedic implant, a lot of those products are sold by distributors, and they have the implants and loaner kits in the trunk of their car, and they hand deliver them, and they're actually at the cases when it's the first couple of cases. If that's not part of your sales, marketing, and distribution strategy, you really need to rethink what you're doing in the orthopedic industry, because that's how that industry works. If you're going to do it differently, you better know what you're doing and have it really well planned out for why you're going to do it different from everybody else. I love different, but different for different sake is not a good strategy. You need to know what you're doing and what the norms are and why you're going to do it different. That gets into the difference between marketing and advertising. When you understand why you're going to do it different and why you're going to differentiate yourself that way, why am I going to do distribution through direct sales rather than through independent reps? That's a really good thing to understand and integrate into your marketing strategy for a company. So I hope these help you understand. If this was helpful to you, or you know some other medical device entrepreneur out there that is struggling with what do they do when they get their 510K, what's next, share this video with them. That would be very much appreciated. And don't hesitate to put something in the comments down below if you have any positive or negative feedback for us, or if you have a suggestion for next week's video. Please let me know in the comments down below. and I will respond to those comments at least once a week. I go in there and check on the comments, and I write a response. So I hope to see your comment there soon. Have a great day. Bye bye.